Hi, hello everyone, and it's a blessing to be here with my friend and the amazing editor and award-winning ghostwriter and editor and developmental editor Brett Valley. And thanks for joining me today, Brett. I'm super excited, and also an editor for many publishers, Penguin, and yeah, many publishing companies, and you are also a writer yourself and an author. And so, all of those things said, uh, I love the topic that we came up with for this talk today, which I just thought was so great, which is toppling the tyranny of the blank page.
That's right. That's right.
I really loved it. I was like and I really like the idea of toppling. And of course, I looked up tyranny, which is like oppressive, dominating leadership. Uh,
Right.
I think we are just talking about New York. No,
Yeah,
my
exactly.
New York relationship with New York. But yeah, so I was really curious about this, and um, just seeing, the page as, I mean, yeah, I'd like to hear a little bit about your perspective on how do you do that? How do
Sure.
you find a way to do that? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, it's great to be back here with you, and thanks so much for the invitation. This is an important topic for me because I'm not the kind of writer that's blessed with when you see an empty space, you're just ready to go, ready to create. There are people out there like that, and my hat's off to them for sure. But for me, it's always that blank page is the time when the inner critic starts to really mouth off at its highest volume.
It is highest volume.
Yeah, and I feel that judgment, that fear of judgment, and so it's always been even in when I was working as an editor and having to um, come up with things like flap copy and book jacket, back jacket copy, and write up promotional stuff. Just any time I was, had to stare at a blank page, I started to think of it as a tyrannical force. um, so that's sort of how that all started years ago. I think I said something to someone to that effect, and I was like, that's really how it feels to me sometimes. Not all the time, um, but I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm sure that a lot of people get that same feelings when they're confronted with a blank page and they know they have to start, they want to start on something. And, none of what I'm going to say is particularly novel, but, or unique or new, but it's, kind of interesting from my particular experience of being a ghostwriter and, having to start no matter what. If I'm ready or not, I'm on a deadline. I have someone else's pages I have to help create. So for me, I just tend to, I used to get hung up on making sure the first sentence was going to be airtight. That the first sentence was going to be one of the best things that's ever happened in humankind. Um, and now, the way I get started is I tell myself, just write the worst sentence that's out there.
Oh my God.
Just, just write what comes to your mind that's relevant to the topic um, you're working on. And I surprise myself sometimes. Sometimes I'll come up with something that's pretty good, and sometimes it is absolutely terrible. But by the time I've realized that it's absolutely terrible, I'm a paragraph in, um, so in a sense, I've toppled that tyrant of the blank page by just kind of reminding myself that it's not that important.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
That is so interesting. That is
yeah.
Say hello to Yolanda. Hi, Yolanda, and hi, Musings. Hello. Um, welcome, welcome. I just think that's so interesting. I love the idea of, like, writing the worst possible sentence.
Yeah.
Like, what is the worst possible sentence that I could think of? And then, and just the recognition of, like, "Oh, that was the worst possible," or maybe, "Oh, that was a pretty good sentence."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like, in the middle of the next paragraph, you're like, "Oh, okay, it is what it is." But
Yeah. Right.
I love that idea, you know?
It's just, like, automatically lowering, the expectations and, not focused on the outcome, just the process of getting started, like, because chances are even if you sit there and stew about it and worry, and you're still gonna end up writing something that's pretty bad.
That is
So,
true.
yeah, I think it's really, I mean, I'm being a little bit lighthearted about it, but I really do think it's about, just getting rid of that pressure from the beginning. And So then it becomes not so much toppling a tyrannical blank page, but becoming exercise in filling that page. Just like, this is what I have to do. I have to get started. Um, and so that inner critic, you can start to turn down the volume on the inner critic that way, because you've already started. You've already gotten 250 words.
Yeah.
You're through it. You're through that hard part. Um, and as we talked about before, on our last meeting, the outline is a good step before you get to that point, so that you already have some raw material you can work with. But yeah, by just kind of like turning it on its head and saying, well, I'm just not going to worry about writing anything good at all. I'm just going to write probably the worst thing possible, and then I'll go back if I have to.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Yeah. And, I'm trying to remember, but I think was it in Bird by Bird? I can't remember exactly who it is, but something about, oh no, maybe it's Carr. Maybe it was Carr that said, "Write your crappy first draft."
Yeah, that's bird by bird. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's and Lamont, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like, and that has helped me so much.
Yeah.
Brandon, oh my god, Brandon, you looked so cute in your apron, and you're so adorable. So I'm glad you're here, and yeah, I just loved seeing your post. That was great. So yeah, I think that, yeah, Bird by Bird is, and just that statement of, "Oh, the crappy first draft," and then that's something that has helped me so much, in just saying, "Oh, I just need to say," so sweet, he says, "Thank you." I just need to say whatever's in, whatever's calling, or whatever's being asked for, or whatever, you know, I need to express. And, um, I find, like, for me, I find, like, the seasons are always, like, a really great little trigger for me to, like, just
Mhm.
go onto the page. Like, if I can just start with a season, or if I can start with a sense,
Right.
so, you know, do you have, like, some hard, fast rules about practice?
Um, I wouldn't say they're rules. There are things I generally do almost as a reflex. If I'm really struggling, I remind myself to set a scene. So, which is kind of, I think, what you're talking a little bit about, seasons and scent and smells and
Mhm.
memories or things like that, where you can just start by setting a scene. That's something I'll do a lot to get started, when I can't do it any other way. And that seems to help unlock. I think part of my problem as a writer sometimes is that, I want it to be perfect, and if I can just get past that, I'm much freer as a writer. So
Yes.
anything that will unlock that potential to be creative, instead of like dwelling on what's perfect and what's expected. Um, so that always helps me if I think about setting a scene. If I'm for instance, if I'm, writing, let's say I'm writing a memoir and I'm thinking, well, I want to get this story down about my family and I don't know where to start. Well, start with the room, start with the person sitting in front of you.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. That's super helpful.
Yeah. And then if it doesn't work, you can start another way, but then you've got all this material you can work with and you've kind of loosened up already. So your prose is going to be more unique just by virtue of you working those muscles a little bit. So yeah, that's one thing I'll do if I'm really hung up, if the tyrannical blank page is really wielding its power.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but like you said, starting with a season, like if you want to write about a fall day, go ahead and start with that, and then wind way back to what you're supposed to be writing about.
Yeah. Totally.
Right? Yeah,
Totally. Yeah, Brandon says, "Yes, the pressure of perfectionism is so limiting."
true.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting. It's so funny because I know, like, I was trying to write this piece, for my an autumn piece for my Substack, and and I went back, and of course the leaves were gold, and then the leaves were gold again, and then they were still gold, and I was like, "Holy shit, these are these gold leaves," and so then I was, and I was able to do that for the first draft,
Hmm.
and then Joan Facette, who I had on not too long ago, she talks about how sometimes we overwrite, we
Yes.
overshoot the mark, and so I also allow myself to do that, like, I'll just be like, "Oh," and then I'll talk about all of the different leaves and how they're covering the ground and why they're covering the ground and how they do that, and then I'll talk about, like, how they, like, cut off the oxygen supply from the leaf, and then, and I mean, I'll just, like, go to town. And
Right.
from that, it maybe I'll get, like, a one short sentence out of all that, you
Yeah.
know? And I'm like, "Oh, that's just right," and I don't have to mention gold leaves again?
That's right. That's right. That's
So
one good thing is a good way to start too, is that you don't have to dwell on things forever. Just say what you want to say, move on. And if that helps you get started knowing you don't have to, you know, get three sentences or a paragraph down on this one thing. You just try to get it said and move on. And sometimes that's a good way to start too. Um,
yeah.
if you're trying to describe a summer day, it's okay to just say it was a hot summer day. uh,
And
it,
then you
it,
start getting into humidity and sticky and yeah,
right,
things
right.
melting and yeah.
And then move on, and then you can go back and revise and come up with a different way to say that. In is
So great.
in a few words too. So yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, one of my favorite writers is he recently passed away, is Martin Amis, and his father was also a writer, and his father was a more commercial writer, although some of his novels had some literary qualities to them for sure. But anyway, he an interviewer once asked him, he said, "What do you think about your son Martin's prose or his books?" And he said, "Well, he's talented, but he needs to he overwrites. He needs to write more sentences like Jim took out a gun, like
Oh my gosh.
so
Yeah.
allow I think we're getting to something here, which is allow yourself to be imperfect and allow yourself to be um normal, and don't set the bar so high, and because it's really not that important. You can always go back and change it.
Yeah.
It's just you and the page at that point. So it's there for you, and you just have to get started. And I think we even talked about last time too, like that notion of having the boots by the door. Like if your boots are by the door, you're always ready to go, right? You just got
Yeah.
to put them on, and that applies here too. You know. Um,
Yeah. Do you work with exercises or anything? Do you work with prompts? I mean, I love this the idea of start with the room or start with the person in front of you, uh,
Mhm.
set the scene. Uh, but I'm curious, do you have any exercises that you do or that you recommend around
Um,
the blank page? And
yeah, as far as exercises, I don't really have anything rote or formal that I do every time. But there are things that I rely on. That is, I always allow for if I'm thinking one thing and something comes to mind uh, before I've started or as I'm starting that feels more appropriate, I'll scrap it and go right to that insight. Whatever that intuitive insight was, I will follow that. Um,
sure.
so in terms of practice, I try to get myself to a place where everything's kind of receded so that I can receive those intuitive insights. So I do a lot of quiet meditation sometimes before I write, especially if I'm spun out about something where I sit down. But um, I feel like listening to those and even writing down, maybe before you get started, writing down any of those intuitive insights that come to mind is a really good way to get started too. Um, yeah.
Um, there's this really interesting process that I do sometimes, like when I sometimes if I get something I want to write about, then I will do like these little bubbles.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that's really nice, like, and then I'll just start to do, like, oh, fishing, and then I'll put, fishing pole, weight, and then I like to challenge myself to, like, use every single word that I've developed in this little system, you know?
Right.
So, little mind mapping kind of, um bubble situation, and I love that, like, just looking at the little bubbles and being like, "Oh, yeah," and then each idea leads to the next idea, leads to the next idea. I do that a lot in my poetry,
Yeah.
uh, when writing, like, a bantu, a four-part bantu or a pantoum or something like that, I'll often do, a little process like that, you know, and I also really find that forms help me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about that last time too. Yeah, with the outline. I think the outline is for me works a little like the mind mapping in that if I've got my outline, I've already gotten some phrases and some ideas that I can lean on. As I start. Um, But when I'm actually starting, I don't normally do any particular exercises, although, maybe I should.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
interesting, right? It's just
yeah,
interesting. So another thing I like to do is write quatrains, Chinese quatrains,
yeah.
and they're fun because the way that my writing mentor taught me to do them, it was Joan Fossé, and she said, "You can hold your breath, and for each line, you just breathe out for each line and not hold your breath." Sorry about that. You breathe out for each line. So you write each line for as long as your breath lasts.
Mhm.
Go to the second and then the third and then the fourth. So I really enjoy doing that. And it's hard not to like hold my breath or make it go out even longer if I want to say something more, but it accesses the unconscious. It accesses this whole other part of the brain that I think has a lot to offer us. What's your favorite thing to write?
Um, it's interesting you asked that question right now because I've been, as I've been thinking about starting a Substack, and I know I'm way behind the curve on this, but
Oh,
um, because I feel as if the thing I enjoy writing the most, I need to do more of, which is sort of like notes from my daily life, vignettes, stories from my family. Uh, so little memoir moments, I think, are the things that I love the most because I feel like as I'm writing those, I'm learning the lesson or getting the value of it as I'm writing it. Like I'm learning why I'm writing. So in other words, if I'm writing about spending Christmas with my family, some funny moment or whatever it was that transpired, as I'm writing it, I'm realizing the value of the
Mhm.
story. So those are my favorite things to write. It's what I want to do more of for Substack, I think. There's a
Yep.
writer named Rick Bragg who writes these short essays for. Well, he now writes them for Southern Living magazine, and they're wonderful. They're just really funny, heartfelt um, little vignettes from his life and lessons learned or sort of learned. um,
In between learned and learning.
yeah, so those because I really do like that kind of writing. And especially as I get older and feel less pressure to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
You know, when I was younger, I thought I was going to write the next great American novel, and I may do that eventually. Who knows? But I don't feel the pressure to do that anymore. I want to write some things that give me pleasure and hopefully give other people pleasure too. So I think that is kind of a lesson about starting too, is remembering your goals and the purpose of why you're writing. It's really, at the end of the day, it's really not about pleasing other people. It's about doing what you love if you can. So, um, uh, especially during these difficult times, any kind of joy that you can create for yourself and for others, that's a real boon for for our community and the people we love. So
Yeah. Yeah. Any morsels of goodness,
yeah,
morsels of goodness, I think, yeah, just some good. Let's just do some good things and
right, exactly.
simplify and, I think there's something very, like, warrior sage about, just leaning the love,
Hmm.
into
Yeah,
the love, offering what we love because, you know, love has isn't getting the best rap all the time.
that's right. Yeah,
Love is where it's at, man.
yeah,
But not only love, there also has to be that backbone,
right.
behind it. But, um, I am also curious about what was your favorite thing to edit, or what is your favorite thing to edit?
So I think that it's I wanted to really love editing fiction, but that ended up being the thing I like to do. Um, I still love editing fiction if I get the chance, but it turned out to be the thing that I felt I didn't have the foot. I didn't really feel like I had the muscle for, or I wasn't on the foot. I didn't have my footing there because it's so subjective. And my opinion of good writing, good fiction writing, might be very different from someone else's. I feel like that with nonfiction, um, even though that's changed a little bit over the years, but even with nonfiction, there's a little bit more of a consensus about what is good and what's it's more objective maybe, less so now, but anyway, so I thought I was going to be really dedicated fiction editor, but turns out I really enjoyed working on people's memoirs and narrative nonfiction.
Interesting.
Hmm. and
Interesting.
and and I also, I mean, speaks to our working relationship.
Yeah,
I do love working on prescriptive books,
yeah,
which is something I never would have thought in the beginning that I would enjoy, but I really do enjoy that because it's, you're really working to get a message across. And to me, there's something in my brain that likes solving problems. And so I
yeah.
think that. the
And you're
prescriptive.
very good at it.
I I think prescriptive books allow me to exercise that part of my brain a little bit. So, yeah, I've surprised myself over the years. I love reading fiction. I love,
Mm,
hope to write more fiction, but in terms of editing, I really prefer working on nonfiction stuff. And memoir's got to be my favorite, just because the potential for so much with memoir, there's so much investigation and feeling and heart and humor, and it can be raw, so I feel like memoir provides the kind of human experience, spectrum of human experience that I enjoy reading and working on. Yeah.
yeah. You're also an award-winning ghostwriter, like best-selling ghostwriter, and of course, you're not allowed to talk about who you've done that for. Uh, and
Yeah.
I'm just curious about that. I'm just curious about, like, ghostwriting and kind of what is in that, or it's like a very I think it's like a very special type of service to, like, give this, like, gift that you have in that way, so I'm just curious about what it means to you to do that.
Yeah. It's an interesting process for me because well, I love to listen to people tell stories, so it was natural for me to do this. So, um, but getting people to the point where they want to tell stories is the hard work, I think. And you have to be a good listener. You have to. There's, part of my job description should be therapist. um, But in all seriousness, I appreciate the work because I'm listening to people tell stories and open up, and I'm helping them. Comes back to problem solving a little bit. I'm helping them figure out how to tell their story. Um, so a lot of my work um, in the ghostwriting book collaborating space. Uh, is around that organizing of thoughts and getting that outline together and then helping them tell their story. And sometimes they might write more in the beginning and then I start to work on it after that. And sometimes I generate the material first and then they add to it. Um, so it's a lot more nuanced and complicated than it might sound. It's not just me sitting down listening to someone talk and then transcribing that and fixing it, which some people may work that way. I'm sure they do, but I tend to really want to have a lot of conversations in the beginning and get to know each other and find that level where we're actually collaborating. So
Yeah.
yeah, because I think that's one of the joys of book collaboration and ghostwriting is when you get into that flow of true collaboration. Yeah, it's very rewarding. I mean, it's also, it's got its some pain points. uh, but I've been very fortunate. Everyone I've worked with has been a pleasure, and I enjoy getting to know them through the process and getting to know myself a little bit more too by listening to other people and trying to understand them. And um, it's an interesting process to find yourself writing in someone else's voice. So that's a very I don't know how to describe it. It's almost transcendent in that you've just like kind of left yourself for a little while and you're just kind of you're in someone else's skin. So it's um when it's really working, it's quite a feeling. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're, like, almost, like, sharing someone's voice or
Yeah.
probably almost like a spiritual contract also, like, "Oh, there's a spiritual contract," and then yeah, that's gotta be interesting, and then when things are finished, like, when a book is finished, do you have a process around it? Do you have any type of ritual, or is there something that you do to, like, close it, or And have you continued some of the relationships? Mhm.
Yeah, I have. Definitely. I feel like I get to know the people I work with. Well, just, I mean, the spectrum of people I've worked with and are working with now. You've got like a journalist, a writer and an artist, an actor, a professor and a public intellectual. So it, there's all different personalities and types of writing. So, um,
Mm.
that versatility, I feel like, is one of my calling cards, and I love that about the work. And like working with you is totally different from the other things. So
Yeah,
you're constantly shedding your skin and recreating yourself as you work with these
yeah,
people. Um, and so I think through that, whatever relationships you do form, they tend to be pretty strong, unless you're just constantly, butting heads, which I'm sure happens. It does not happen with me, but so it's
well,
in
you're
terms of
Southern. You're in the South, right? No, no, no.
yeah,
You're Southern. You're in the South, so it's
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's yeah. Well, that's nice. No.
Yeah. In terms of ritual, though, the one thing that comes to mind is so at the end of the day, this isn't your as a book collaborator. This isn't unless you're like a co-author. This isn't your project. It's their project. It's their idea. So at some point, you're invested in this thing so much, and at some point, you have to let go. So for me, one of the things I have to do is say, okay, my job is done here. I've done everything I can do. I did the best I could, and now you have to let it take wings and grow wings and fly, and you really don't have anything else to do with it at that point. It's not like I'm doing any promotional work for it, or so, but I do stick around till the bitter end in terms of the editing process, so I'll help with all the editing, and as it goes through as it goes through its life in the publishing phase. So yeah, so I work to the bitter end until it's time for me to recede.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And with my memoir, um, that is now done, completely done, completely done. I'm so grateful for that. Um, And there's a couple of excerpts that I put on my Substack. I think I wanna put one more there, but, you edited that. You edited the prose, right? Melanie Noel, who's a
Right.
great poet and was the Edmonds Poet Laureate, um, she did the editing for the poetry, and I mean and one of the things that I loved about both of you that I think is really interesting because you're both very earthy people, you know? You're both, like, very earthy and, connected to the ground, and I'm very like, "Woo, let's take this ride on this there's a magic carpet, and let's ride it to the end," And, but going line by line, just going
Yeah.
through, like, line by line, and yeah, well, thank you, Brandon. It's been a process for sure. Thank completed memoir, he says, "Very cool." Yeah,
Yeah.
taken a minute.
Yeah.
But, but and I really love that, and it's also like a hybrid, it's a mixed genre,
Right, right.
and I loved that you were like, "Well," and I don't agree with this, by the way, my friend, when you said, "Well, I'm not a poet, so I really can't," you know what I mean? I'm like, "But I really think you are a poet," and so I had Melody help me with she worked line by line with the poetry, and then you work line by line with the stories
Right.
that make up kind of this, I mean, what would I call it? It's like a framework,
Yes. Yeah.
that's
And
holding it together and
we talked about that, how it, I guess how strangely it happens when you set up a framework and then you feel more freedom after that. That's
yeah,
a very interesting turn of events. That's why those outlines are so important. So that by the time you get started, you're staring at the blank page. You already have this form. Oh God, well I'm okay because I've I've got this form I have to work within, you know? I think that's what was always appealing to me about, writing screenplays, although I've never done one, but, you know, you basically have you have a form you have to follow, and there's some even though that might sound constraining, there's some freedom. There's a lot of freedom in that when you're just like, "Oh god, okay." There's some of that weight, some of that inner critic is gone because you've or turned down because you've got this form to follow, so you feel a little bit more confident.
Yeah.
So outlines really help with that. And that was one thing that I was going to say is that, you know, part of my job as a book collaborator and ghostwriter is very, there's a lot of project management involved and a lot of like practical stuff that is very unsexy, but has to happen. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, for new writers, if you can kind of function as your own project manager too, like that would give yourself some milestones, and that'll help you, you know, set up a folder for it, and within the folder you have your drafts and your finished. You know, give yourself like really be project minded about it. Even though it's a creative endeavor, if you can inject it with some practicality
Yeah.
to help you keep moving, just help anything to help you keep moving, help you stay in that
Mhm.
space. Yeah. Um,
So great.
yeah. And I found that even that exercise of being, you know, with my own kind of writing and um, you know, I tend to be I try to be pretty practical about the approach sometimes. Most of the time.
Yeah.
Um, which doesn't sound, you know, it's not that's one thing I've learned about writing is, you know, I grew up with a very romantic idea of it. And the more I'm involved in it, the more I realize that it's so rewarding, but you know, it's really hard work and
Hard
it
work. Yeah.
takes commitment and dedication. It's not all divine inspiration, you know. So
Yeah, I mean, example and case in point is with the memoir, I had, I had it like I was like, "Oh, this is what I wanna do, and this is how it's gonna be," and, I'd kind of figured out, like, a structure that I wanted to hang everything on,
right.
um, and then, I talked with you about it, and I was like, what are your thoughts? And so with the developmental piece, it was like you were like, well, this very last chapter, which was this whole big chunk about this one specific person, you were like, well, what if you put that throughout the book in little segments? And oh my God, like Brett, that's kind of like the hero.
Right.
Oh, this kind of strange, uh, kind of fascinating hero that is this thread that's running through the book. And so I really appreciated when I was able to, when Melanie and I went through and we were able to like go, oh, okay, this and this and this and this and this. And, and, um, and Melanie was so instrumental and, she just was so great about, well, I think this piece would fit here better. And this piece, like literally just removing like paragraphs and putting
Yeah.
them. Oh, we'll put
Right.
this that and Melanie Noel, man, she fucking rocked it and was like, "This goes here, this goes here, this goes here," and it really, and my idea was complicated.
Very.
It
Yeah.
was very complicated, and that just, like it was like, "Oh, now it's a simpler, more streamlined," and then there's this being in the story that's really, among all of this total chaos, I think my therapist once said, it's like she said, "You were raised in an insane asylum," you know? And I was like, "Thank you for saying that."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um, and I mean, there were times when I wasn't. I did have angels and, I had mothers who were really good for me and to me. And, but there were times where it was like as a miracle and I made it through that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think that, I think for me, like one of the reasons that I do what I do with writing and is just that people know they're not alone and that they know you know, someone else has seen this and known this and gone through this and like also a way to ease people's suffering and to serve their ability to know that, whoever we are, it's okay. Whoever
Right.
fine. Like, it's great. Who you are is great, but you just have to be it, really be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on that note, I wanted to ask you, like, what called you to writing? You talked about being a child and kind of having a romantic idea about it, and I'm just curious, like, what called you to.
Yeah, I think it was the when I started reading in earnest in high school, it was it was that, um, I think being, pretty much an introvert, I think what I discovered in reading, was it was this place where I could go where I didn't have to feel any pressure anymore. and so and so I loved reading. I loved the education part of it. I loved getting the immersion of it, getting lost in a story. Um, I love the whole unvarnished look at human experience part. Um, and then I slowly started to fall in love with the language, like how things were expressed. So
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's great.
and and then after that, I started, well, maybe I can do this. Like you love it so much, then, like I wasn't just a casual reader, like I was highlighting things and underlining and trying to figure out how the writer got to that place where they could write like that. And so I think it was more of a gradual thing where I suddenly was like, well, people have done this. I should try and do this. But I didn't. I went to New York and got into publishing, and I told myself, well, that'll be my day job. I'll write all the time and I'll just work. And of course, work became my life. And so writing got pushed away, even though I was doing some on my own, but not really pursuing it. And then after I left New York and left the publishing industry, it started to resurface again.
Mm,
And So I think it was just responding to the way writers write about
mm,
human existence,
yeah.
um, how they are trying to make sense of it and doing so with words and phrases. It's kind of
Mhm.
amazing when you think about just like a painter does with colors and lines. So that was really what called me to it. But I think it was the moment where it became something that I knew I wanted to do was when I fell in love with the language, like how words sound, how they look together, how sentences, a short sentence works next to a long sentence, how five long sentences work together, understanding the energy that comes from one or the other. So when I got into when I started to appreciate the mechanics of writing is when it really started to really call me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really, yeah, that is a calling.
Yeah.
That
So, yeah, at first it was definitely I was a 17-year-old kid who was reading Kerouac, and of course, like, I wanted all that, right? I wanted all that.
Yeah.
Um, but once that kind of like, some of that romance, fell away, it was really trying to understand how language does what it does and how writers use language to express what they want to express. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Yep. It does, and of course, it leads me to another question, or another curiosity, or another wondering. Uh, and that wondering, so I have a couple different wonderings, but one of them is, are there particular books that you feel in particular that writers should read? Like, are there, or do you have some favorites that you would suggest, or in, you know, people who inspire you besides Kerouac?
I mean, that was a young man's game. Although, I read On the Road not too long ago. It's still for me. I'm just speaking for me. I'm not trying to pass judgment on a monumental piece of American literature, but it still holds up as like a very fun, interesting, poetic ride. I mean, it is a ride. But yeah, I don't. I guess books that I would recommend in terms of people that are aspiring writers is don't even have to finish it. But if you read in Moby Dick, you will see a love of language that is unsurpassed in my view. Just his love of writing and the expressing and words he uses, and I mean, it's just a magnificent piece of literature. And like I say, you don't really have to read it all, but just read in it. It's a very inspiring to see the freedom with which he wrote that. It's very creative. Virginia Woolf, Mrs. Dalloway, I think, considering that it's a whole novel about a day, um, and
A
is
whole novel about a day.
yeah, and it's just so wonderfully written. And so that is one that I've carried pretty close to the heart. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, I don't know about any others really. None are really coming to mind. I mean, there are novels that I could say that I was told, if you want to read the best novel ever written, read Middlemarch by George Eliot. I couldn't get through it. I'm going to try it again, but
You were like, "Well, nice try."
um, I would anyone out there that's considering writing a memoir, I'll always recommend Patrimony by Philip Roth, which is a book about his spending time with his father at the end of his life. Um, and it's a very honest, raw, beautifully written book. And what's cool about it in terms of like being a writer is that you see how he chose a particular slice of time and
Mhm.
wrote a memoir about it. So he didn't feel the need to start from square one, start at A and get to Z. He started right in the middle, and that book was very freeing to me because it was like, oh, you can just start somewhere in your life and then incorporate, reflections from your past within that. So it was a very eye-opening book for me. Yeah. Um, but I love that book. I've read it several times.
Um, there were a couple things that I just wanted to talk about before we go into poetry. Um,
Oh, Light Years by James Salter. That's the last one I'm
Yay, light keep tossing them in. Light years, that's great. And these are books that I mean, you have an editor's eye. So the shit's gonna be good, okay?
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna be good. So I have a lot of faith and trust in that. Um, there were a couple of things, uh, that I wanted to mention. Like, I think sometimes at least for me, like, the page needs gestation. Like, sometimes, Julia Cameron talks about this idea of artist dates, where you go and for 2 hours a week, just by yourself, no dog, no human, no aliens from outer space, nobody else but you. And you go and you do something that, you wanna do. And it can be free or it can, whatever you wanna do. I excuse me. I really like to, spend time in nature. I like to go to a park somewhere, or I like to, you know, be in the wilderness if I can. But also, there's places where I'll like get filled up with color. Like there's a conservatory here in Seattle where they have incredible plants. I'll go to like the Asian Art Museum. I'll go to Chinatown. I'll go get coffee or Ethiopian food, or but just some place where I can be filled with flavor or visual or some way that I can process or digest or gestate or like, you know, integrate my experience, especially if I have been writing something,
Right.
then I it's almost like I need to go to integrate the experience that I've already had, and then new colors, new things, new experiences will come into my, or maybe even a conversation I have with someone at the, you know, conservatory about an orchid or a Mexican barrel cactus, or, like
Right.
those things are, yeah, ways to gestate. And so I was just curious about that for you. Like, do you see sometimes that the blank page is asking you to do something else?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes, I do. And usually the blank page may be telling me to get up and start over tomorrow. But
Scared.
yeah, yeah. But um but yes, I think what you're talking about, and I connect with that because if you're in that awareness of you're in that swim of your ideas, and then you take the time to go do something for yourself or to free your mind or take a walk, whatever it is, there will things that come to you that you will make those connections because you're so present in your project that
Mm,
that you will be making connections that you wouldn't have otherwise. So sometimes it's important if you're in the middle of something and you're tired, stop. That doesn't mean that when you stop that the writing necessarily stops. You'll be going home and you'll be lying awake at night and things will come, the information will come because so I think what you're talking about is allowing yourself to step away from it so that you can be reinvigorated by life, or because if you're aware of what you're after and you're in that zone, everything things other things that you're doing are going to make you're going to make connections that you wouldn't have otherwise. So it's important to remember to when you're getting tired, you're running out of ideas, step away because two things will happen. Something that you do outside of the piece you're working on will inform it. And the other thing is you'll come back at it with a fresh eye and see just how bad some of it is or how good some of it is. So,
mm.
yeah, that perspective, getting that perspective is always helpful, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's, yeah, really, really powerful. Um, was it, I think it was Ray Bradbury, and he said, "If you wanna be a writer," and I've watched all these old videos of him, I fucking love him, he's so great, and just wise, but one of the things, I mean, he talked about a lot of things, but, one of the things is he said, "Formal education can, like, ruin a person." As a writer, like
Yeah.
like going to, like, but he said, "If you wanna become a writer, then read, 1 essay a day, 1 short story a day, and 1 poem a day."
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and, I gotta tell you, I've read some really interesting I've dug up some really interesting short stories and poems um, and essays, and that's one of the great things about Substack is you can, like, find, just they're so I mean, the best of the best. The best I mean, really, my god, so compelling. Um, and so I was just wondering, for you, like, do you have a favorite short story, or I don't wanna use the word favorite, but, a well-loved, do you have what are your well-loved short stories? And maybe you could share one of a poem that you
Sure. In terms of short stories, I tend to go back to Hemingway's short stories,
ah,
um,
ah,
because of just little how little it took for him. I mean, I know he worked really hard, but his sentences are so spare, and it's a reminder that that storytelling doesn't have to include every little single thing. That as long as you're getting the feeling down and the
Mhm.
atmosphere down. But I don't read a lot of short stories. I used to,
Mm.
but um, but what I do go to though is poetry. That's where I go for kind of a reignition of inspiration and passion because there's so much freedom in the language and so much feeling generally.
Oh,
Uh,
Brett, so amazing.
yeah. So, but I do like to read Hemingway because I just think he was a bit of a magician when it comes to writing a story.
Mm.
But so spare, but so much in there too. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, yeah. I mean, I've read a lot of George Saunders over the years.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I've never. Are you a short story person?
I really enjoy them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really enjoy short stories. Uh, Truman Capote. Yeah, so I think Songs for Chameleons is yeah.
Uh huh.
The man is fucking. I mean, really, really, really special human. So yeah, I enjoy them. You know, Ursula K. Le Guin. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, some of the you know, yeah, Amy Tan, of course, and uh, Toni Morrison. I've read some short story. Yeah, I mean, just like beyond, and of course essays. Uh,
Yeah. Hmm. I like essays too. I tend to gravitate toward the ones that, even if they're not really a story about someone's personal life, it has a personal element to it. I love those kinds of essays. I'm really drawn to those that have an injection of the writer within the essay. I think those are spectacular when they're done well. Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
her Lord is probably my favorite. Yeah, I mean, her essays, and she like writes like she would write like, I'm really a poet, and I'm a poet first, and of course, her poetry is so fantastic. I mean, unshakable, and goes to the bone, and to the heart. But her essays oh, are yeah,
yeah.
I so far my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
So far, my favorite essays are, and also memoir. I mean, her essays are all memoir, and so
Yeah.
that those two kind of they weave,
Yeah.
and yeah, and my work on Substack is also a lot of it is memoir essay
Yeah.
blend.
That's sort of, yeah, that's a little bit what I would like to do too. I think I think those are really, really rewarding. Yeah, John Jeremiah Sullivan is one of my favorite essay writers. He's very quirky, very smart. Um, lives in Wilmington, North Carolina. Um, so yeah, essays are when you're in the hands of a good essayist. There's really nothing better. It's just like story,
Oh
memoir. It's
my
it's
god, yeah, you're just like, oh my god.
yeah, investigation. Like it's got all the elements. Yeah.
Brandon says, I like O. Henry.
Yeah, yeah. Classic, classic, classic American short story writer.
Really great. Well, I thank you. Thank you, my friend, and thank you for sharing your wisdom, and I know we're gonna do something on, like, um, you know, some stories from your publishing
Yeah,
world and maybe some funny things, like the funniest things that happened,
sure.
or, just, like, entertain some things that kind of were entertaining for you, in all different kinds of ways, and just also just, like, the pleasure and the fun of being a writer. Like, I think it's like it's work, yes, but and I think we touched on some of that today. Um, but if you'd be willing to share a couple of the poems that I'd
Sure. So I figured I would pick one that's seasonal, but
perfect.
I'll read one really short one first. It's by a poet named Ian Hamilton. He was a British writer, essayist, biographer, but he also wrote poetry. And he was writing in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s
Mm.
mostly. And it's called Epitaph. The scent of old roses and tobacco takes me back. It's almost 20 years since I last saw you, and our half-hearted love affair goes on. You left me this, a hand half open, motionless on a green counterpane, enough to build a few melancholy poems on. If I'd touched you then, one of us might have survived. Pretty amazing poem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a goosebumps on your shoulders poem for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really good and all but forgotten these days. Sad.
Mm.
Um
We remember.
yeah. But since it's Christmas, I figured I'd read Mark Doty's Messiah.
Oh, Mark Doty. Yeah.
Or is it time to go? It might be time to go. Is it time to go?
I think we should close with the Mark Doty poem.
Yeah, I think it's worth it. It's worth
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's time for that.
it. So this is called Messiah, Christmas portions. A little heat caught in gleaming rags, in shrouds of veil, torn and sunshot swaddlings over the Methodist roof. Two two clouds propose a Zion of their own, blazing, colors of tarnish on copper, against the steely close of a coastal afternoon. December, while under the steeple the choral society prepares to perform Messiah, pouring in their best blacks and whites onto the raked stage. Not steep, really, but from here, the first pew, there a looming cloud bank of familiar angels. That neighbor who fights operatically with her girlfriend, for one, and the friendly bearded clerk from the post office, a tenor trapped in the body of a baritone, altos from the A&P, soprano from the t-shirt shop. Today they're all poise, costume, and purpose, conveying the right note of distance and formality. Silence in the hall, anticipatory as if we're all about to open a gift we're not sure we'll like. How could they compete with the sunset's burnished oratorio? Thoughts which vanish when the violins begin. Who'd have thought they'd be so good? Every valley, proclaims the solo tenor, a sleek blonde I've seen before. The liquor store shall be exalted, and in his handsome mouth the word is lifted and opened into more syllables than we could count. Central ah, dilated in a baroque melisma, liquefied. The pour of voices seems to make the unplaned landscape. Text predicts the Lord will heighten and this music demonstrates what it claims. Glory shall be revealed. If art's acceptable evidence mustn't what lies behind the world be at least as beautiful as the human voice? The tenors lack confidence, and the soloists, half of them anyway, don't have the strength to found the mighty kingdoms these passages propose. But the chorus, altogether, equals my burning clouds, and seems itself to burn commingled powers deeded to a larger centering claim. These aren't anyone we know. Choiring dissolves familiarity in an uppouring rush which will not rest, will not for a moment be still. Aren't we enlarged by the scale of what we're able to desire? Everything the choir insists might flame inside these wrappings burns another brighter life, quickened now by song. Hear how it cascades in overlapping lapidary waves of praise. Still time to change. Such a good poem.
Yeah, that's so perfect, Brett. What a perfect way to close.
Yeah,
Still time to change.
that's right.
Yeah, it's great. Well, happy holidays.
You too. Thanks for
Happy
having me.
solstice, and what a blessing, and thank you for sharing that, and I love Mark Doty, and you, originally turned me on to him, and I read his memoir. Oh my god, it was yeah, so important for me, that book. I I thank you, I cherish you, and I'll see you soon, very soon.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.